Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Devil's Cut, a podcast about all the things that go bump in the night. If it's spooky, scary, or spine-tingling, we're here to talk about it. I'm your resident manboy possessed by a devil, Matt Young, and here with me, as always, is a skeleton everyone should want in their closet.
Eric Rossi.
How's it going, Eric?
It's good.
Having another good shark week?
It's been a shark week. I don't think I've ever had a more chock full shark week.
That's crazy, because you grew up in magical shoreland, like I always tell the people.
Yeah.
So
ocean.
you just were with sharks all the time, I would have imagined. I imagine you kind of like jet skied on a shark like to school every day.
No, I wish. We had to go to school on a bus like losers.
Oh, not pulled by sharks though, right through the water.
I wish we had
Like
used sharks.
Some kind of like New Jersey, like Atlantis hybrid.
I think it's fucked up that what we've done to sharks, and we haven't made them part of transportation. I think it'd be more understanding the attitude we have towards sharks if we were utilizing them. They'd have a better reputation.
True, and it's funny because as far as vehicles go, cars kill way more people.
True.
than sharks do. So maybe it would also even out the like vehicle death, numbers. Like
car manufacturers and seatbelt guys are like, oh, thank
God they brought in the sharks. Thank God they flooded the roads and brought in the sharks.
I have been struggling to get a hold of our third host for this episode, our co-host, Mr. Cena.
Yeah, you know what?
Discovery Channel's own Shark Week's Mr. Cena.
Yeah, I know it's going to be really hard for the listeners to hear. A complete shock that we were not able to actually get him here today. But you know what? We did talk to him, and he's busy. He's got Mr. Cena's got his retirement show he's planning. He's got to go out of the WWE with a big bang.
Gun to my head, I would have assumed he was already retired.
No, he's finally retiring
to chase his passion that is Shark Week.
Yeah, now he's gonna host Shark Week every week. It's gonna be Shark World.
Shark World. Oh my god,
all sharks all the time. Him and Chris Angel are actually gonna spend a year living with the sharks. It's all part of an elaborate stage show. I couldn't even fathom what it would be about.
Do you see this shark? I'm going to get inside this shark. I'm going to get inside this shark and I'm going to sleep there for 48 hours because I'm a mind freak.
David Blaine survives 5 days in the belly of a shark.
Now, you know what? I've been pretty sick of fucking David Blaine and his nonsense attempts to convince me he's doing magic. But if he survives 6 days in a fucking shark mouth, that'd be kind of cool.
That'd turn you around on David Blaine?
Yeah, like the time he got frozen in ice, I was like, boo. The time he lived underwater, boo. But if you got stuck inside a shark for 6 days, David.
What you didn't know was that shark was also in the belly of a whale. Double-bellied David Blaine.
There's a mouse inside of David Blaine. And inside of David Blaine, this mouse is going to survive 6 days while David Blaine survives 6 days inside a shark mouth while that shark is inside a whale's mouth. And that's why you don't give a mouse a cookie.
Just thinking of the Secret of Nim equivalent of David Blaine is an amusing sight. But we've gotten too far off topic already, Eric. So we're here.
Barely.
We're out on the sea. John Cena's not here, but we rented the boat, so we got to be out here anyway. And we are here, just like we told you guys last week. We're here to talk about shark movies and sharks in general. There is a complete lack of a shortage for shark movies and shark content out there.
I feel like an abundance has a positive connotation. What's like a negative connotation to having too much stuff?
Like a deluge of shark content. If basically anywhere you turn in cinema, you're likely to encounter a shark, more often than not. In horror movies, I mean, there are an uncountable amount of shark horror movies that range from pretty awesome to
shark
really fun. We'll call them really fun.
Really fun is a good way to put it.
Really fun.
Going into this episode, I knew that there was just like a cesspool of shark cinema out there, and I was aware that there was such a quality in spectrum, but I guess like the sheer number of shark movies was kind of like astonishing to me.
Yeah.
I felt like when we did Amityville Summer last year and we realized that there's like over 100 Amityville titled movies, it felt like I was kind of like standing at the edge of a cliff looking down into an abyss, and I was like, whoa, look at all those Amityville movies. A lot of
houses.
And then I feel like for the shark movies, I went all the way to the bottom of that ravine, and then I found an even bigger ravine, and it was full of fucking shark movies. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's like Challenger Deep.
There's even Amityville shark movies.
There is. Yeah, I was going to say overlap. Amityville Shark does exist. So there is overlap. We do have Amityville Shark. No, there is like an indescribable amount of shark movies, and not just horror ones specifically. I mean, there's just lots of like content around sharks.
Shark action movies, shark horror movies, shark romance movies.
I can't say I've ever seen a shark romance movie.
We watched Jaws 3D the other day. There's lots of romance going on in Shark 3D.
But I mean, beyond that, I mean, we joked about it, but you know, Shark Week has been like a presence in my life. For
an institution.
As long as I have memories, I remember that Shark Week happened every year.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you know, for anybody, I guess, who lives under a rock at the bottom of the ocean, Shark Week, every week, Discovery Channel, since like the 90s, would do like a whole week where all of their programming was just dedicated to shark. A little mixture of shark propaganda and actual shark information.
Yeah.
And everything else in between.
My favorite were the ones where it was like, all right, we know there's this big fucking shark out there, and we have to see what it looks like feeding at night. We've never taken a picture of it at night feeding on things, so we got to go and we got to find it. And then they spend like 3 hours looking for sharks, and then you get like 5 minutes of shark footage, and they're like, we did it!
And they spend, like, we spend 3 hours watching them, but they spend
months.
And it feels like months when we're watching it.
There was a program on there a few years ago that I think may have been the biggest bait and switch of all. They had a show where it was like, we have this Olympic swimmer, Michael Phelps, and he is going to race this shark, and they keep showing you like these lanes that are laid out in like an ocean where you're like, all right, this motherfucker's about to get in here and swim in the open ocean against the shark. How's this gonna go? How the fuck do they do this? Then at the very end of it, all they do is show you 2 3D models based on stats, and I was like, boo! Fucking boo!
Did you actually have any inkling that
I was like, maybe, I know he's not going to outswim the shark, but like maybe they put like some plexiglass between the two of them or something.
It would have been a much bigger news. It would have been a David Blaine level news story if Michael Phelps actually raced a shark.
Well, you know, I had time to kill. I wanted to see what happened.
Hey, you know what? Curiosity, it'll get the best of you sometimes. Obviously, we're going to talk about the shark horror movies and what their relationship is with horror. We have to like preface it for anybody out there, the people who are like, they're ready to like type comments.
Yeah.
You know, anything like that. We know sharks are much more complicated and significantly less dangerous than everything the movies have made them out to be. I have like a little spiel, you know, some factoids and stuff, and we'll talk about like why it ended up being such a thing in our culture to be like so terrified of sharks. But we understand. Eric,
we know they're just animals.
Yeah, we know they're not like these like hyper intelligent aquatic grim reapers with like this taste for human blood that is insatiable. We know that that's not the reality of it.
In fact, I'd argue we're very pro shark on this podcast. At least I am. I love sharks. I think sharks are great. Big sharks, small sharks, Nerf sharks, gummy sharks, hammerhead sharks, all the sharks. Love them.
Whale sharks?
Love everything they got going on. Whale sharks, which I don't think are actually sharks. I think they're just fish.
They are.
Are they sharks?
Actually, yeah. Yeah, but yeah, sharks are just like almost every animal. They're dangerous, but mostly harmless if, you know, properly respected. Did you know, in fact, you're 30 times more likely to get struck by lightning than being attacked by a shark?
That makes sense. considering we live in Georgia, like in the middle of Georgia, I yeah, that sounds about right.
And just to really show that we understand the reality of it, despite all the fear and anxiety that humans, place on the shark, it's sharks that should legitimately be way more afraid of us, because while only a handful of people experience even a minor shark attack any given year, every single year humans kill 100 million sharks.
Why? I just don't shark fin soup can't be that good.
Well, I'll get into it actually in a little bit. Because I have some facts about science facts about sharks. So I'll tell you why exactly so many sharks are killed.
This shouldn't have been the hot, wet summer. It should have been the summer of science.
Of science.
There's just so much science on this podcast this summer.
Oh, I like it. Sometimes, I like to do a little bit of both. I like to learn, and then I get excited when I find something out, and I got to tell. Now I have a platform that I can just say, "Hey, I learned this is a fucking cool thing." But yeah, really, sharks should be afraid of us. We kill so many more of them. It's insane. 100 million. That's a lot of fucking sharks.
100 million's a fuckload. What do we even do with them all?
I'll tell you. But anyway, sharks should be. They're trapped. We're not trapped in here with them. They're trapped in here with us. And yet, despite knowing all this, I at least still find the idea of the slasher shark, so powerful that no amount of reasoning or logical thinking could ever stop my skin crawling. The second my toes touch seawater, it's shark. Even though I know, I understand the reality of it, but there's something about them, that's it was put in me when I was young, and I can't get it. It just terrifies me.
It's so funny to me because like you said, me, a person, grew up at the beach. I'm sure I've had my unaware run-ins with sharks in my time surfing. I've been surfing for quite a few years. Mm-hmm. I've never felt like I've been in water in any capacity and been like, oh fuck, I have a real threat of sharks right now. I also understand that there's very specific times where you're more susceptible to sharks, during their feeding hours and things like that. But I have been scared shitless more of a dolphin sneaking up on me in the surf than I have ever been considered oh no, there might be a shark.
Yeah, well, you also know me. I mean, growing up, I was a big weenie baby.
Yeah,
I was scared of literally everything. I thought everything was out to get me. Yeah, just a sad scrotum of a childhood I had. It was just I'm always afraid of everything, right? When I was a kid, so sharks, obviously, I was going to be terrified of. But it is one of those things that it was powerful enough at young enough of an age of a fear of mine that it's just stuck with me. I still can't. Now, I was one of those kids that was even though I could see the whole pool, I still was there's a shark in the deep end. I know he's there. I was one of those kids.
Makes sense. I just.
Which is what Night Swim should have been about.
Yeah, that's what Ghost Shark's about.
I know, but we know that one's bad. I mean, we know they're both bad. But if you could take the production value and give it to Ghost Shark, that's a movie.
Ghost Shark would be viewable. And even looking at it, I know there are people who are that's a terrifying monster, and I just don't see it. I just I don't know if it's just a level of, you said, early education of hey, there are sharks. This is what they are. I got a little bit more of the eco-conservative view of shark, where it's hey, we need sharks. They're important. And you got a lot more of the Hollywood fear of sharks. Do you think it's how we've talked about it on the show before too, how everyone from our generation was convinced that sinkholes and quicksand were going to be a way bigger problem in our lives? Do you think it's a similar phenomenon where it's hey, sharks are dangerous, here's monster sharks, and even people in the middle of Utah are well, I'm not going in the ocean, there's sharks, and you're that's not a problem for you?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is that the because it was right around the time when it was the first, it had only been a couple decades of having such quick access to news and information from all over the place. Mm-hmm. In the 90s, TV, ads and like infographics and like little. They were always giving us warnings about shit in like in between cartoons.
They were,
you know. So like I don't know. I guess quicksand. Some kid probably died, and then someone was like, "I'm gonna put it everywhere." And then, but now that like suddenly, especially for people in like Utah, they see a shark and it's like so alien to them. You know, they're like, "Oh, I ain't ever going in the water. Then I don't live near any, so no big deal." Sharks, I think, are much more of an alien creature to us too. So it's like, whereas it's easy for people to sort of like anthropomorphize like a bear, which arguably way more dangerous and more territorial and aggressive.
It's funny that you bring up a bear, because when I was watching that shark exploitation documentary the other day, it dawned on me how like this exact phenomenon of like, well, like to a normal person, a bear, it's a mammal, it breathes air. It sometimes walks on two legs like a human does. Like it's a very like relatable animal by comparison to this big, gigantic gray torpedo full of knives.
Yeah, which exactly. So like people, I think it's just easier for people to like see a mammal or even like just a land animal, because like people do it with lizards and stuff too. It's easier for people to like go like, oh, I can see like it's got human eyes, like it's got like I can understand it. You know, it's despite the hard work that Jabberjaw tried to do in like creating a soft vision of the shark, he didn't quite get the job done. He was no Scooby-Doo. You know, like people see Cujo and they're like, yeah, but dogs are still cute, and that's just the one dog. But Jaws happened, and it's like all sharks.
All of them bad.
All of them bad, scary. I think it's just easier for people to put like humanity on certain creatures. Sharks are not them. Even though we're coming around.
We're pretty close.
You look at a great white. Pretty cute.
They're kind of cute.
Kind of cute sometimes.
I think if we could teach a shark a couple tricks, the PR would really change.
Hopefully, I got some fun facts that I think will also endear people a little more to sharks here.
Oh, that's thrilling.
But yeah, but also they happen to live in like the most terrifying place on the planet. Like they're in a horrifying environment to humans. You remove sharks from it, the ocean. We had a whole episode about why it's scary.
Yeah,
removed from sharks. We didn't even talk about them in that.
Yeah,
episode.
we didn't.
And like also if you're near a shark, like if you're near a bear, right? Like you're in the woods, but you're in your element, right? But if a human is near a shark, we can't do any. We're like the worst in the water. We can't do anything. Yeah, we move like so slow. We look like idiots.
There's a reason why our species evolved out of the water. We were like, oh, this sucks. Let's go on land where it's easier.
Yeah, our genetics have removed living in the water from us. Like it's just not where we're supposed to be. So a shark encounter is unsettling. So I think that's another reason why like even the environment contributes to why they're so scary. But like I've been saying, they're not really that scary at all if you like believe like in the straight science of it all, like you were saying. I mean, you've never had any real like actual like fear in any given moment, like about them.
The closest I've ever been to a shark in my life in the wild that I know of, that I'm conscious of,
sure,
maybe like 20 feet. And even then, I wasn't like, oh, fuck, it's a shark. It was like a pretty small shark.
But yeah, so I have some shark facts. Just a quick little science. We're not gonna be as in depth as our living brain down, still lost in the ocean somewhere.
Oh,
maybe
no.
one day he'll resurface.
Big Eric's still underwater?
He's just a brain though. He'll be fine.
Okay.
He's in his own tank already. So sharks theorized to be about 455 million years old. It's old as shit, man.
That's old as fuck.
Older than trees.
Yeah.
I actually don't know if that's true, but
where did we see that? Was
it
that
was in one of the movies we were watching?
We're watching Jaws 3D the other day, and they're like, "Yeah, they're older than trees." I was like, "What? What?"
And then I hit him. I was like, "Well, the world was all water originally, and then eventually trees came. It's possible sharks came first." And he was like, "Whoa!"
It's just crazy to me.
He had a real like Cheech and Chong moment.
I did.
Like, whoa!
My grandpa always used to say on my dad's side, he always used to say that he was older than dirt. And it was just like one of those statements where they're like, oh yeah, sharks are older than trees. I was like, how?
Sharks, they are a group of fish. I've been asking Eric this question. Leading up to this episode, I was like, are sharks fish? Like every week I'd forget.
I keep telling him like, yep, they're still fish.
So they're a group of fish, but they're characterized by their cartilaginous skeletons. So correct.
No bones.
No sharks, not a single shark has any bones.
That I did know.
Yeah. They you might think you have like shark bones, like shark jaws and teeth and stuff, but it's actually just dehydrated and solidified cartilage. It's like basically their bone. They don't have bones. They have ears.
Yeah, they've literally like rubber. They're like rubbery, and they're just chunky meat torpedoes.
Yeah, they're just meat and jelly. They are fish of the Chondrithius class, but specifically of the Elasmobranchi subclass. And this is important because within the first class that I mispronounced, so the Elasmobranchi is their subclass. It's because they are sisters to the ray family of fish. So like stingrays
like manta rays.
Yeah,
okay.
So sharks and stingrays are like super, super closely related.
It makes sense. I feel like they have a similar like physical makeup. Their skin is very similar. Manta rays are usually a little slimier. I've touched quite a few of shark and manta ray in my day at the Camden Aquarium, and which honestly, best part of Camden.
Yeah.
Hard to argue. But yeah, that I didn't know that, but that makes sense to me.
Yeah, they also in more signifiers. They have 5 to 7 pairs of gills. They have rigid dorsal fins, and they have tooth-shaped or placoid scales. That's scales that are very stiff and tooth-shaped that face in one direction. That's why you always hear if like you pet a shark the wrong way, you'll like cut your hand. That was always like a thing, and I'm like, when am I ever petting a shark?
It's false.
Yeah,
you would have to really fucking grind your hand against a shark to like cut
I always thought that was such a funny myth, though. I'm like, well, or myth or whatever. People are like, well, yeah, you pet a shark backwards. I'm like, why the fuck? Me as a little like second grader, I'm like, why the fuck would I ever be petting a shark? Are you crazy?
I would say the shark skin that I have felt in touch tanks and stuff like that,
like sandpaper.
It's more like a cat tongue.
Yeah.
To say it's like sandpaper would even still be like a little disingenuous. It's like
it was like a wet sandpaper.
Yeah.
Which is cat tongue is very accurate. But and this is an important one. A big notable distinction between like sharks and other like kinds of fish is that unlike most fish, sharks do not have swim bladder, which is like a very common organ for fish that helps them like float properly through
regulate
the ocean. But rather sharks maintain their buoyancy with oil that they store in gigantic fucking livers. They have huge livers that are just pumped, filled with oil, which they can use as sustenance in times of like famine. If they don't have food source, they consume the oil. But one of the main reasons why sharks are so overhunted is because we use their oil from their livers in so much stuff.
Real? Like what?
I mean, like just whatever stuff needs oil, like shark livers is like a huge,
Is that what they coat the now and laters in?
Highly possible.
Oh.
Now and laters.
Right? Is that the one?
Yes, I do
The
know
purple and white guys? Yeah.
Oh, no, those are the good and plenty.
Good and plenty.
Now and laters are like the little starbursts that are like rock hard instead of fun and chewy.
I changed no part of my statement.
No, but yeah, so it's actually like the shark liver like oil, like they use it in like fish oil, like anything you need. Like it's a huge reason why they're overhunted. And they're also overhunted for like population control because of fear of sharks is like a big one. And also, like you said, shark fin soup. Like a lot of places in the world like do eat sharks. It's not a very common American meal.
No.
Most people in America, I would imagine, like maybe 1 in 20 has like eaten shark before.
I've had a type of shark.
Like mako?
They're called dogfish.
Oh.
And you can catch them like pretty close offshore in like the Northeast. And honestly, most places.
Wasn't like mako like a thing back in the day? Like you eat mako shark?
Yeah.
I just remember that from my childhood, but it hasn't never really crept up in my adult life.
Yeah,
so
people
I thought maybe it was like Clams Casino. It's kind of been phased out, except by like old guys.
No, I caught an 8 shark on a like a bachelor weekend
Oh.
situation for one of my friends' bachelor parties. We took a fishing boat out and I caught some dogfish. And I hate to say it was like super fucking good. I wish I could say we didn't immediately like take it home and like pan sear it and have it for an appetizer before a night out, but it was banging.
I'm not like saying, I mean, for me, they're fish, you know? So like, I'm not saying like you can't eat shark. And I'm sure there's certain species of shark that there's like tons of that we could fish and it would be fine.
Commercial shark fishing, bad.
But
Bad.
like occasionally, like you catch a shark, like you're fishing, you catch a shark. Well, you know,
Yeah.
it's just like regular, I don't know.
Although I will say, I don't know if I would take the chance of eating like big honking shark. Like the little shark that I had was
Right.
like
More of a
under
fish
5
than
feet.
anything, yeah.
And like, I don't know if I
wonder-
would take the chance on eating a creature who like may be full of license plates and boots and things like that.
I think if there is an exotic animal I would like to try, I would like to eat a hammerhead shark just to like, they're just my favorite shark.
Just because the sentence sounds
I
nice.
just need to know, like, what, yeah, like hammerhead steak. It sounds great. But yeah, so that's one of the, like I said, I would get to one of the reasons why they're so overhunted. I didn't know about that, the whole like liver oil thing. I was like, that's crazy.
No.
It's a whole aspect of shark that I didn't really even consider.
Yeah, that's news to me. The swim bladder, the lack of a swim bladder is just something I didn't expect at all.
Yeah, they're like oil in the water. That's how they stay afloat.
Gross.
Also, some other fun facts that I have. This is some of them like a target like specific like shark, just things we've always known but are like false. Specifically, that sharks have bad eyesight. Sharks have like pretty good eyesight, actually. I learned.
Huh.
They're not like eagle-eyed, but their eyes are fine, and they actually have really good night vision because there's like a lens that grows in their eye that let them see in like really dark waters, which is useful. But they can also see like a really broad spectrum of color too.
Yeah.
So they're like they have like pretty decent eyesight.
That's why you're not supposed to like go swimming like at sunset and like just after sunset, because that's like prime feeding time for sharks.
Mm-hmm. They also sharks have these small stubble-like specks on their face, and these are actually called electroreceptor organs. They let them sense magnetic fields and temperature shifts in the ocean, which is like that's like fucking comic book stuff. I
didn't know it was like a whisker-based organ. I thought it was like a thing that was in their nose that they used to sense like electrical impulses.
No, it's
and
more
stuff.
like whiskers.
That's kind of
as
cool.
if they were like stubble whiskers, because I said it's all around their eyes and their nose and their chin. Like it's like facial hair, but like way more useful.
Little shark mustache. That's cute.
Like essentially shark whiskers. Another really cute thing. I guess it's probably not cute to them, but we humans will find it very cute. When you turn a shark upside down, most sharks will go into a trance-like state. It's called tonic immobility. It's essentially the same thing that possums do when they're like, because it requires them to be scared or like anxious enough to then just go like, It's like the goats that have the seizures, you know, they can't really.
Oh, yeah.
It's not something they control. It's like if they're startled enough, like a possum will just, you know.
You ever see that kind of footage where a diver will just like take a shark by the nose and kind of coax him over and just like put him right to sleep?
Yeah, so it's a real thing. They go into this little state where they end up upside down. And they're like, uh-oh. And then just fall asleep because they're like, we don't know what to do about this. The body just goes into full hibernation, which is like crazy. Like imagine if we had one of those. Like if you like put us a certain way, just. I guess that's like everybody has one. It's like if you're a side sleeper, that's it.
I was about to say
put him on his side.
You put me on my back long enough, and I will be snoozing.
I just think it's cute, and if we can like compare sharks to possums more, I think it would really do a lot of work. Like the possums have done some heavy lifting in terms of like getting like ugly things, the representation.
Yeah. It's a huge advocate for ugly animals with gross teeth.
Put possum energy into the shark. I think we'll do a lot of damage that fucking Jaws author did.
From what I understand about like shark behavior, though, is that they are like very dog-like.
Yeah, they're essentially, they're fairly intelligent, and their behavior does mimic a lot of time like dogs. Like they're really just wandering around looking for snacks, And most of the time they're not going to be looking for like things as big as humans to try to eat, because they're not looking for a struggle. They're just looking to like snag something. I was telling Heather, Spooky Wife, this the other day, like most shark attacks and most shark bites are more of a result of a shark being curious, like if you're edible. And the reason why like a lot of people get away with a shark bite and not being like eaten in half is because the shark was like, I don't like that.
Ew, no, gross. Yeah,
that's not for me. So it was mostly just testing. It's just for them, it's a little like, and for a lot of like animals in the ocean, like a little like a bite in something, animals just move about their day. For us as humans, we're at the point where like if anything inconveniences us, like a bug bite, we'll call out of work for it. Like so like we get bit by a shark and it's a life-changing like event. But it's like for them, they're just like, oh no, never mind, sorry, I didn't want to eat that.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that the shark is not particularly preferential to what they call long pig.
Yeah,
human meat.
Yeah, we're not in their food chain.
No.
So they don't have a taste for us because we're just not something that's an option.
We don't taste anything like fish. Why would they want to eat us?
Yeah, they're carnivores with a very specific diet. The reason why humans can eat everything is because we can go everywhere and we have eaten everything.
Yeah, we're dumb.
We're omnivores that'll just put anything in our gobs. And so like we just kind of like put the same... It's like we only put like human aspects onto sharks that are like the shitty ones.
Yes.
Yes. like all humans are like evil and we have like shitty intentions and we just want to eat everything and we're mean. So like that's sharks. So that's how they all are. But really, yeah, they're not that they're really not looking to eat us ever. Also, the whole myth about sharks having really good scent where they can smell like blood in the water from like miles and miles away.
Yeah.
It's like not really true. It's kind of true, but like most fish have, because they're not smelling blood. They're just smelling like the like gases and stuff that are released while it's all mixing in the water. And like most fish can also do that.
Yeah.
In fact, the sharks mostly hunt with their eyes, and they have like these organs that let them sense, like they're almost like ears that let them sense like vibrations in the water. So they hunt mostly by like sight and feeling things splashing around. Yeah. So blood's not even like you're more likely to get attacked by a shark if you're like flopping around like swimming.
That's
than
why.
You are.
That's why it's always like people in shallow water and in like like surfers and stuff, because they're out in a specific space along the shore that it's like, okay, the shark can totally hear that or see that and they're gonna go after it.
Yeah, and again, not because they're like, I will eat man.
No.
It's just like, oh, what's going on over here? Is it a seal? Let me try it. And it's not, and then they leave. But we were like, ah! But yeah, so like that's like just some fun stuff that I thought was super interesting. I actually did not know about the bone thing.
Really? The cartilage?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think much. For a guy who's into spooky stuff, I should think more about skeletons.
That's why we don't have so many fully intact shark, like, skeletal, like,
more
displays.
Dinosaurs than shark stuff.
Yeah. We have, like you said, we have a lot of jaws and we have a lot of, like, big mandibles and stuff, but
Those
we don't have a lot of, like, completed, like, look at this dangling shark skeleton in this museum.
Yeah, mostly because I'm sure, like, the jaws and those are, like, the denser points of the cartilage, so they form into solid pieces more easily.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So those were fun things that I thought were really interesting about sharks, but also highlight like a lot of what, like, they're just animals, and they're not that scary. But again, I'm saying all this, I will still be scared of sharks the next time I ever go in the ocean. Like, it's just gonna happen. There's just something about it that's just built into me. And has been my whole life, and hasn't been helped by the fact that there's just been an like infinite amount of movies that, again, I know are fake, but like they just reinforce that fear,
And man, fake. Woo! Oh boy, some of them are powerfully fake.
Yeah, so like sharks, in media first started to really become like big villains. One resource that was like really invaluable when I was prepping for this, I had you watch it, was the Sharksploitation movie. It's on Shudder. I thought that was like so useful because it gave such a good breakdown of like shark movies like through time, mm-hmm. and also little like timeline of like before there were movies, like, you know, what was causing
what was
know,
shark media like. Yeah.
And I mean, it started way back in the like 18th century. This was a part of the movie that was like being like one of the talking heads was this woman. Her name's Dr. Emily Zarka. And I looked her up after I watched it. She's fucking awesome. First of all, sexy professor. She's very attractive.
That's a W.
Very attractive. But she is her specialization is she's a professor and a monster expert. She went to college. She's a
bad dragon enthusiast.
Maybe she's got a doctorate in literature, and history and like lore and legends and stuff. Her whole thing is like she wants to take like myth away from like the like stuffiness of academia and like take like all this stuff and make it more like grounded and accessible like for people. And
That's
she
fun.
does that like by studying like monster movies and shit like this. So she's like this monster movie and like creature expert. And I'm like, where were you when I was like 15?
That's fucking sweet. That's the Miss Frizzle I needed in my life.
She's honestly she's got big Frizzle energy.
That's cool.
But yeah, so she, you know, during her one of her portions of the film, she was breaking it down. So it really started like a lot of it started in the 1800s when like print media like first started to really become more like circulated and stuff.
Prolific.
There was like a lot of illustrations and depictions of sharks like in like a scary light becoming more common because someone would, you know, be sailing, you know, in the Americas or, you know, from, you know, Europe to America, and there's like a lot of boat travel, a lot of stories are coming out of like, oh, a shark got us on, you know.
Yeah, after Ben
stuff.
Franklin really kicked things into gear with the printing press, the transatlantic like trade routes were obviously beset upon by sharks because these were the types of ships that
Sharks
were.
hate newspapers though.
That's
so
true.
That's what it is.
They hate print media. They're big audio heads.
They love podcasts. We have a couple. Whenever I check the RSS feed, every once in a while, there's like a dot in like the middle of the sea, and I'm like, shark.
It's a shark
It's a
listening.
shark listening. He ate someone's iPod that's just updating, you know, every time we put out a new episode, it just can play.
But yeah, the transatlantic trade route became like a huge hotbed for like shark attack stuff because we were transporting slaves, and lots of times slaves were getting thrown into the ocean. And as a result, the sharks started to learn like, oh, if we follow these ships, we're likely going to find some lunch. And that is just another layer of terrible on top of an already fucking abysmal topic. But I think like the early shark attack stuff I think is so fucking cool because they just like we talk about shark attacks with a pretty significant like amount of shark knowledge and shark exposure. Mm-hmm. So like the idea of really not knowing fucking snakes from dildos about sharks, and then like you throw a guy overboard and he gets eviscerated by like just this scary thing that's been following your ship must be fucking terrifying.
Yeah, I could obviously understand how, you know, sharks would be more terrifying back then, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it goes up to even, you know, farther. Dr. Zarka also mentions there was a like shark attack in like the mid 19th century of like a Cuban boy who got his like leg bitten off by a shark. But this apparently inspired like a really famous painting called Watson and the Shark, he was done by an American painter. I know it's famous. I've seen the painting before. I just I don't know who did it, and I didn't know what it was called. I just know I've seen the painting before. But apparently it's very famous. Then in like 1916, that's the big one for us because we grew up in New Jersey. So
yes.
That's another thing that compounded the shark fear growing up is I lived in Jersey where it's like you would think, well, you know, sharks are in the ocean. So if you're in a lake or a river, you're fine. Not in New Jersey.
Not in New Jersey.
Because in 1916, there was a series of shark attacks in the Delaware River.
Uh-huh.
Just a bull shark had gotten lost, essentially. It like swam, you know, upriver, didn't know what it was doing. It just ended up, and bull sharks just happened to be able to exist in freshwater as well as saltwater.
It's funny that you bring up this specifically because, like, I remember when I was growing up, a lot of the time when we weren't, like, in the ocean, where I lived was like a a barrier island. So we had the ocean on one side, and then the opposite side we had a bay that did have an outlet like out into the ocean. So anytime I was out on the bay with someone, they'd be like, "But isn't there maybe sharks in here?" And I would have to be like, "Well, no, because it's not the ocean, but also it's not impossible for a shark to be here." So it's one of those things where they're like, "Oh, please tell me there's no sharks," and I'm like, "Well, there can't
there's
be
a
none.
Non-zero
There can't
chance.
be none."
Yeah, that was a huge thing growing up. Like, just being. I mean, not that it happened anywhere. It happened in 1916. It was like so far separated from my existence.
Yeah.
But it's still. It's not, and it's not like a thing that happens all the time where it's like, oh, another bull shark got in here. It was literally like one of one. Like, this lost dumbass shark got stuck in the river, and he was like, "Well, I gotta eat.
I'm hungry."
But it's still. It was like a huge. That was. Those shark attacks compounded with the like release of the novel Jaws is what really, you know, brought the film into existence. It was like what, you know, those things all inspired Spielberg to make the movie. And I mean, after Jaws came out, that was it.
It's over. That's a wrap.
Yeah. But still in between then, sharks were used in like movies constantly. Like almost every James Bond movie with what's his name? Sean Connery. Like almost every one of those has sharks in it. Every villain is, like, has a pool of sharks, or like Bond is scuba diving for some reason. He's always scuba diving in those ones, the older ones. And shark attack. Even if he's in the middle of like a firefight with other scuba divers, like it's like a 20-minute sequence, and then like a shark will like interrupt, and he's got to deal with that for a little bit.
It was funny to me watching that shark documentary about the like exploitation films because it cued me in on like a subgenre that I hadn't really ever thought about. But apparently a lot of the like pre-Jaws media around sharks, as far as in movies and like used in film, was what they called the treasure hunting subgenre
the treasure hunt genre
of adventure films.
Which I would actually love to see a resurgence of, like the treasure hunt movie.
Yeah,
it's
I
so
mean,
fun.
it's so pulpy. It's like such like an Americana like pulp tradition of like, we're gonna go find the treasure.
Yeah.
And they're scuba diving and fighting off sharks with knives and shit, and like that's just like so what's the fucking goofy, the crab fighter, you ever see that one?
Yeah. There's even a whole like Netflix show that my like parents were like really into called The Outer Banks, which was like all about kids treasure hunting. And I'm like, yeah, well, can we get more like, and watching that documentary made me think I would love to get some more movies that are just like, despite how like corny it was, like the Uncharted movie did like scratch an itch that I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe more movies like in this genre would be fun.
There's a Western that I'm always on the lookout for because I saw it once and I don't remember the name of it, and it was so great. But it was a treasure hunt movie about these guys who were trying to like dive to the bottom of this super deep, fast river to retrieve this wagon of gold that fell in.
Whoa.
And like they had to like come up with all these primitive ways to like scuba down and like get the gold, and it's like too heavy so they can't like just swim it back. It was cool.
That sounds awesome. We gotta. There's like no way we could possibly Google that.
No, I've tried it a million times, and there's like, it's such a good movie.
I'll try to keep an eye out for it. Maybe somebody knows about it.
I'll tell you more about it when we're done with sharks.
But yeah, I mean, even before Jaws came out, though, one of the big ones I learned about, which I thought was crazy, was this movie it wasn't originally called this, but it is now known as Shark.
Just Shark.
An exclamation point. And this is like a Burt Reynolds movie. It was from 1969. And the crazy thing about this movie is that during the filming, like one of the crew members actually got eaten by a shark. Like a shark came into the set, like past like the barrier that they had set up, just swam like right into camera and just chomped on this guy's torso. And then he, like 2 hours later, he died. But they kept that footage in the movie.
They advertised the movie based on that footage.
Yeah, the footage was, hey, or the tagline was like, someone died for this. and it's like, and it's not like a, you know, like a weird, like unknown, like snuff film, like from some random horror production company. Like it was like Burt Reynolds movie.
Yeah.
And it's just wild that they sold the tickets on, hey, this guy died, watch it happen. That's crazy.
I mean,
that's human. That's man was the monster all along.
Yeah,
That's what
definitely.
that is. Like, don't give the shark that. That's not his fault. That one I think was the craziest one, and I'm surprised that this is the first time I'd ever heard of it. I mean, I know I'm not like the most like well learned of. I don't know everything, especially when it comes to like older movies. Like that's still like a big blind spot that I'm working on. But
we're
like,
getting him through.
But to never have heard of like, oh, here's the Burt Reynolds movie where a guy gets actually eaten. It's like one thing for a lot of like old horror movies to have like animals die on screen. In fact, there's a lot of shark movies where just like lots of sharks get lit up.
Yeah.
But like to have a dude die and get eaten by a shark and
rare.
And we just leave it.
Yeah, we'll be using that in the final cut.
But yeah, apparently the movie wasn't even called Shark originally. It was called like Kane, which is like Burt Reynolds' character. And the movie was, again, it was like a treasure hunt movie. And actually the shark had very little to do with it until that guy got eaten. And then they changed the name of the movie to Shark and put a bunch more shark footage in it. That's like if after what's his face died in The Crow, like filming,
God.
And then they just went, oh, let's make it a gun movie now. We'll change. It's not The Crow. It's just called The Gun.
The Gun.
And now we'll just put a bunch more gun scenes in it. And then they just marketed it like Brandon Lee died for the gun. Like that's crazy.
The Gun.
The Gun.
Dun, dun,
You do like you just take The Crow out anytime it shows up and you superimpose like a pistol, just like
with little feet and wings. Pow, 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 pow.
But yeah, so there is like a big presence of sharks in all those like different adventure movies and stuff. But yeah, it really is. And despite having an actual guy get eaten by a shark on screen, that didn't make nearly the impression that Jaws did. Jaws really ruined any hope that the sharks had for redemption.
Well, a lot of those other movies were so different. It was about like the shark was an element of the danger. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the danger itself. Jaws was the one that really made it like forefront. Hey, this is the danger.
And also, I mean, it's a testament to the filmmaking capability of Spielberg, mm-hmm. because it in addition to making like the decision to have the shark be, as you said, I am the danger, like a Walter White meme pops up. Walter Great White.
Holy shit.
I gotta draw it now.
Somebody get the fucking pencils moving.
It's just the movie's ability to like set the scene and like make just like the terrifying tone. Like, I mean, you could have the same like story, but not have the same like skill behind the making of the movie.
Yeah,
it wouldn't be nearly as scary or remembered. It's like everything between like the cinematography and like the music, and it's just, it's such a good movie that it also was really bad for sharks.
Perfect example of that, though. Look at that movie Cruel Jaws, which was the like an Italian ripoff in like the spaghetti western style of Italian ripoffs of Jaws, where they literally just stole shots from Jaws 1 and 2, and
but doesn't look as good.
No, it just looks shittier,
and also was definitely a ripoff. But yeah, no, it wouldn't, if it was that came out first, we wouldn't have had nearly the explosion. But Jaws came out first. Jaws came out, and like it caused people around the world to be like so scared of sharks. People who were like like we were joking about the Utah guy earlier, like those people were like became afraid of sharks. Yeah. Like
people who've never been in the ocean are all of a sudden afraid to go in the ocean, and
people that are in the ocean every day are like second guessing it too.
Yeah.
Like that's how powerful Jaws was. It's crazy. But we're not gonna harp on Jaws too much.
No, we did say we're not. This isn't a Jaws episode.
No, this is just Jaws is a influential part of shark movies, so we have to at least talk about it a little bit. And we'll just say it's good. Jaws is awesome, undeniably.
Sick,
really
love
good
it.
movie. It's great. The shark looks cool. We love it.
I can't even tell you how often I quote "black eyes like a doll's eyes."
Yeah, it's infinitely quotable. It's really watchable. Great movie. but we can't say anything about it that better, smarter people haven't already said a million times.
No, people have been fucking yapping about Jaws for 60 years. We're not bringing anything new to the table.
Yeah.
But we
like
do
it.
have
recommend it.
tons of other fucking shark movies that we have to talk about.
Yeah. So to cap off the episode, that's a lot of stuff about sharks. It was fun for me to learn about it. Again, if you're interested in sharks and how they relate to like film history and horror movies specifically, again, highly recommend. It's on Shudder right now. It's a movie called Sharksploitation. It's really awesome. So many cool ideas. Go check it out.
It's really cool. You very rarely get to see a movie that is made in an exploitative like fashion, the way Jaws is, that then has like the ripple effect of like eco-conservationism that movie had. It was like right off the bat, it was like, oh, get rid of all the sharks. But then like after, a couple decades, people are like, hold on, this is an important movie, but it's giving us the wrong message. We need to like really consider saving these animals.
Yeah, one cool aspect of that movie, of the documentary, is the perspective of the author of Jaws, how he realized like the damage to shark culture and population that like just his writing ended up having. He became like he and his wife became like huge marine life, but specifically like shark conservationists.
That'll be shark apologists.
He had to apologize to the sharks because
Yeah.
he really fucked them
Yeah.
up. And he knew it was so funny. His wife is like, yeah, he died knowing he fucked up the sharks. And I was like, Jesus Christ.
To be on your deathbed and be like,
I really killed
I regret all the sins I've committed in the name of sharks.
100 million a year. But yeah, I really, really thought it was a very good documentary. So go check it out. But yeah, we're gonna talk about now some shark movies that we watched this week and this summer in preparation for the wet hot summer and for this episode. So what are some of our favorites? Do you have a?
I will say the other day I saw Jaws 3 for the first time with Randy Quaid. No, not Randy Quaid.
Quaid. Dennis Quaid?
Dennis Quaid.
How many Quaids?
There's quite a few
Jack
Quaids.
Quaid's new. He's
new. He couldn't have been him. But no, and I had never seen 3, and I learned very quickly it is a movie less about sharks and more about jet or water skiing.
Yeah.
I will say this entire like dive into like the shark movie genre has really re-upped my appreciation for like the water sports athletes. And I'm not talking about the kind of water sports where you pee on each other. I'm talking about like,
although if we could get more of that in shark movies, that could be interesting.
I'm sure they got to be peeing all over each other in 47 meters down. But Jaws 3D is just like so fucking bonkers.
Yeah.
While also still being a significantly more grounded shark movie than I expected for the third entry into Jaws.
Yeah, for anyone who's not aware of Jaws 3D, that's the one. It takes place almost exclusively in SeaWorld. And not like a SeaWorld-like business, but actual name drop SeaWorld.
Yeah, that'll be TM
crazy.
SeaWorld.
Really weird, and I can't believe they even signed off on that.
No.
If you want to like put a corporation's name in a horror movie these days, it's like nobody wants their image to be like especially SeaWorld. I can't imagine that their PR was like, yeah, put us in the shark movie where everyone gets eaten at our park. That sounds crazy.
Where everyone gets eaten at our
That's
park.
like a shareholder nightmare.
And also the main character is like the fucking guy in charge, and he just makes like all of the wrong decisions in a typical Jaws fashion.
Yeah, and it's like this. I don't know if this SeaWorld exists for real, but it's like a SeaWorld that has like sort of, it's like built up against a bay, right? And so that's how the shark gets in, is because it's connected directly to the ocean.
Yes, they have like this cool kind of lock system.
Is this a real SeaWorld that exists?
I don't think so.
So they made a fake SeaWorld? They could have called it anything.
No, I'm sure they filmed it at like an actual like waterside amusement, but like I just don't think that like SeaWorld was like, yes, come please, make your shark movie here.
Right.
There's actually some really funny shots where they're like being towed away from sharks by dolphins, like relatively early on in the movie. And if you look, you can see in the background, there's like all of these bleachers set up to watch like a dolphin show. And they're just like a fuck ton of people out there. That movie, for the first time in a while, it made me realize like, oh man, they used to just put a fuckload of people in movies.
Yeah. Well, I had that same realization when we watched Deep Rising. Remember with that casino scene? I was like, man, people just used to be in movies. Yeah. Now it's like 4 people and a bunch of CG blobs like way far in the background. Everything feels so empty.
Yeah. No, Jaws 3 is so much fun because it is schlocky enough that like you get, your really terrible 3D. Yeah. Honestly, some of the worst 3D I've ever seen.
Especially the climactic scene where the shark swims up against the window and breaks it. But Atrocious. It's just like a JPEG of a shark slowly like getting bigger on screen.
It's so bad.
And then a cheesy like glass break filter over everything. It looks so terrible.
But it has that very like human charm that like similar movies like similar movies of the time, like remember how much I loved the like bar scenes in My Bloody Valentine?
Yes.
They have like some early like bar scenes and stuff and scenes with like the staff at SeaWorld that just make them feel like very real lived in people. Mm-hmm. And then they have like this fun like hangover scene like the next day where they're all like slow and groggy and they're eating breakfast and he's like, oh, would you make coffee? You might as well just throw it in my eyes. It'll work faster.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It has that, like very like human aspect to it that a lot of like older movies from back then, the 80s and the 90s, but also just like horror movies in particular always, because you have to build that like human part, like because you can't reveal your like coolest gory stuff until near the end anyway. Yeah. So a lot of them, follow that similar formula of,
they got to endear you to the characters.
Yeah, exactly. And what better way to do it than to just show them just like every mundane conversation they all have in a wide shot.
Yeah. But honestly, I like that style of filmmaking a lot better than some of the ways they use to like endear you to a character now, where it's like you're introduced to this person and then you're like drip fed. Yeah. You get like drip fed this backstory about them. And then it's like in another shark movie we watched this week, The Reef. Or not The Reef, The Shallows. The Shallows. Like, I couldn't care less about that girl.
Really? I just like The Shallows.
Right off the bat, she makes like all of like the wrong decisions as far as like being in the ocean by herself. And then like we're fed this whole like backstory of how she's like a nurse and her mom died of cancer and all this like tragic backstory shit that I'm like, I just couldn't care less.
Irrelevant to my shark movie.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. So Jaws 3, honestly, pretty fun. I don't remember much about Shark. I did the same thing. Jaws 2. I don't remember much about Jaws 2, and we still have to watch Jaws 4.
That's the revenge.
That's the one where that's the psychic shark one who's coming after the original family from the first movie. That's the one where it gets really crazy. Another shark movie that I really enjoy, and this was actually more formative of my fear of sharks, I think, than Jaws, because I'm pretty sure I saw this before I saw Jaws, and that's Deep Blue Sea. I love Deep Blue Sea. Again, I'm a little partial to it because of nostalgia. I watched it like, it was one of the first like horror movies I watched by myself because it was like on cable TV, and I happened to have TV in my room at the time when I was young, and it just was on, and I don't know what made me stop on it, but I just did. And then once I was in, I was in. That's the one, classic. It's got Samuel L. Jackson.
I was about to say, that's the one where he gets ripped off the platform by the shark, right? Like he's in the middle of a speech and he gets ganked.
Yeah, he gets, what's her name from Scream 1 who gets killed right away?
Drew Barrymore?
Yeah, he gets like Drew Barrymore, where he was like sold as like the Samuel L. Jackson shark movie.
Famous guy.
And he gets like tossed like really early. Stellan Skarsgård's in it. That one's fun because it's it's not normal sharks. They specifically go out of their way to say they've been studying sharks at this underwater facility that these scientists are at, but they've genetically modified them so that they're super smart. The science doesn't make any sense because the whole thing is like all about how they're like sharks don't get cancer or Alzheimer's or anything, so we're studying it, and then shark people are like they get both those things.
Shark with Alzheimer's sounds like so depressing. Like most Alzheimer's is very sad, but like the idea of a shark who's just like, what am I doing? Where the fuck am I? Like a shark with the anxiety of like, I don't know where I parked my car.
Like a Dory equivalent of a shark. Yeah. Dory definitely has got like some sort of early onset Alzheimer's, right? Like she's got something going on. That fish is not long for this world. But yeah, so like the sharks in that movie are like specifically like super intelligent, so that like is a little fun twist. Also, it takes place all in like this underwater facility that was like really cool. There's lots of cool like indoor shark attack moments where you're like the sharks are swimming through like hallways that are half filled up to like someone's waist with water. It was just like a cool setting. Also bucked a lot of horror movie trends too, because there was a final boy. There's final boys actually. The final girl that you think is would be the one to survive at the end. She gets eaten, and then it's just two guys who became bros during the movie. One of which was a black man, gets to survive to the end too. That was also unheard of back in the day. So it was like a fun little like twist on tropes of like character roles in horror movies too. And again, the shocking scene of Samuel Jackson just in mid speech, a shark just goes and just totally murks him. It was like so shocking. Now, if you go back, the CGI for these sharks, not so good. Bad. The physical, like the practical models that they use occasionally look pretty good still, but most of it, the sharks is in CG, and it looks pretty rough.
I feel like there's very few CG sharks that I'm like, wow, that looks very real.
We'd have to like, you'd have to get fucking like James Cameron to make a shark movie if we want like a good CGI
He's busy
shark.
With his own blue people.
There's got to be a shark equivalent in the new water one, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
Do you have another special shark movie?
And it is a very popular, and it's more modern, but like I remember when I first saw like the ads and I first heard that the Meg was coming out, I was like, oh no, how dumb could this movie be? And then I remember watching it, and I feel like it was probably 20 minutes in where I was like, uh-oh, I think this movie fucking rocks. Uh-oh, I think this movie slays. This movie's fucking awesome.
Well, you know what? It is kind of, because I think for me it also scratches that that adventure movie itch, because it's not like a straight up treasure hunt movie, but it has that sort of like high octane like adventure feel to it. It's got Jason Statham, so you know there's going to be punching and stuff.
Jason Statham, Rainn Wilson, and then who's that like who's that chick that like every girl is in love with?
Ruby Rose.
Ruby Rose. This movie a little bit more excusable because it is a movie about going in the water and fighting sharks.
Wet, but
there's just something about that actress. Every fucking shot she's in and everything she's in,
so oily.
It looks like they've doused her in fucking olive oil. The girl is always dripping wet for no reason. I'm like, can you get her a towel?
Like the long-haired WWE guys who come out with their oiled hair, and it's just like flapping tendrils all over. Ugh, disgusting.
The whole time I was just like, please get this bitch some dry shampoo and a fucking towel.
That's how she, in everything though. That's just Ruby Rose. Yeah. That's how she just looks. She's naturally an oily lady, I guess.
But no, I loved the Meg, and the Meg really made me reconsider. I think for when it came out, it really changed my opinion on a lot of like these types of films, whether it just be like, you know, an over the top creature feature, or just like the, you know, star-studded like sci-fi creature feature kind of movie. I was like, you know what? Maybe the dumbest premise in the world can still yield a good movie.
Yeah, that's what I think is fun about shark movies too, is you can kind of go either direction too and still get a good movie. You'll get a bunch of bad movies in both direction, but
Hyper
like,
real, tangible shark stuff, or like sharks in space.
exactly. Like you can, like, one of my that's on my list is I really like Open Water. Did you ever see that one?
Yes, I feel like I saw it a long time ago.
Yeah,
though.
it's pretty old. It was one of those. It came out around a similar time as Paranormal Activity. It was kind of like a found footage, but not really. But it's about like a bunch of people. Like I think it's like three couples who like they're like scuba diving and they come up and like the boat that took them there is just like gone.
Yeah,
and then they're just treading water for like an hour and a half of the movie. But like over the course of the movie, they start getting like, some sharks start following them, and then but there's nothing like, malicious about the sharks. They're just like trailing them because like they're gonna eventually die. But that one's like a very grounded one, terrifying, very scary. More so just the concept of being stranded in the ocean, but the sharks are like a presence that like impact the movie enough that I'd say it's a shark movie. But then you can have like the really, the really outlandish ones. I mean, like there's really no better time to start talking about Sharknado.
yeah.
You can get like, we're now at the point, if you go one direction, the kinds of shark movies you can find are absolutely insane. What were some of the craziest ones? And we were pouring through the catalog on Amazon.
Well, Shark of the Corn was
we
pretty
did watch
fucking
Sharks of the
wild.
Corn.
We did watch Sharks of the Corn for about 45 minutes. Don't recommend doing that. Amityville Shark was up there.
Dracula.
Shark Dracula, six-headed shark.
Well, there's two-headed shark attack, three-headed shark attack, five-headed shark attack, six-headed shark attack.
Okay, so the whole franchise of multi-headed shark attacks.
And the worst thing is I don't even know if they're connected or not.
There's sand sharks, which is essentially just like Tremors, but with a shark.
Yeah, just instead of making it a monster, it's just a straight up shark, but it's in
the sand. Yeah. Avalanche sharks. About
that one's fun. They're
sharks in the snow. That one's kind of crazy.
With the skiers, that one's good.
It's just like I've realized that like the shark movie, it definitely is in its own right, its own subgenre, but it's become this like formula that you can plug all of these other variables into and still get like a movie that has never been made before.
Yeah.
Like it's like X plus shark minus this divided by these actors plus another animal equals like Sharktopus.
You can take a shark and basically put it in any environment under like any circumstance.
Yeah.
And people still watch it.
Yeah. There will be an audience that will go, "Oh."
I think one of our collective, you and I both, one of our favorites, another fairly recent shark movie. It's not recent, but I mean, in the grand scheme it is. We both are very partial to Shark Night.
Love Shark Night. That's another one we watched this week. Shark Night is so good. To put like sharks in a setting you wouldn't necessarily consider because it's just like a normal setting. It's about like these kids who go to this, like, they call it a lake house, but really it's just like a lake house that sits on the edge of this swamp.
Yeah.
And all of these kids get stuck at this lake house because the lake is full of rabid fucking sharks that want to eat them, that are not really natural to the environment at all.
No, there's actually like there's a great twist in the movie, which we don't need to spoil because it's not a breakdown of that movie at all. But I will say it's totally so much fun and a dumb, stupid, awesome idea. But it also lends itself really well to the movie because not only can you have sharks in a lake, which is funny, but you also encounter lots of different kinds of sharks too. So it's not just one shark.
No.
It's a bunch of sharks, and they're all different breeds, which is also fun because we don't get often too much variety in our shark. It's either like a bull shark or a great white shark. Usually we don't see any, or a megalodon, which people are just like, well, it's like a great white, but it's really big.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's because most people know at least the reality of like some other shark species outside great white and bull shark are not necessarily like the underwater killers that like some of the other shark species get tagged with.
Yeah, well, it's funny, the great white and the bull shark, I mean, the bull shark earned it because it killed a bunch of Jersey kids.
Yeah.
but the great white really hasn't done all that much to people.
No.
I think tiger sharks are relatively much more dangerous than a and they're like smaller, but they're also way more available to eat people.
That's the thing about sharks, is that a lot of swimmer and surfing based shark attacks are done in shallower water, and great whites just can't fit within that space of water. So the tiger shark, which is a little bit smaller, ends up hurting a lot more people just because it can get closer.
Yeah. We never get to see that many. That's why I like Shark Night so much, is because we get there. I think there's a hammerhead in that movie. There's those little like tiny like piranha sharks there's
the cookie cutter sharks are in that one.
Yeah, you get. I don't know if there's a great white in that. I don't think there is. There's a bull shark. There's like just lots of different kinds. So it's fun. It's a fun little treat. And the actors are also like perfectly like 2011.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Just all the sensibilities of what movies were like back in the like late aughts, early teens.
I'm almost positive that the opening scene of that movie is like three guys in a dorm room playing Halo 2 on Xbox.
Yeah. It's just so it not only is it a fun shark movie, but it's also like a really like cozy time capsule for anybody who for those of us who want to like remember the late aughts and early teens with like rose colored glasses of like, listen, shit was kind of rough, but also isn't it nice to think about when Obama was president? You know? Remember when like nothing really all that crazy was going on? So if you want that kind of vibe, if you need that coziness in your life right now, Shark Night will treat you.
What else? There's I always like when they do the like sci-fi movie formula of like, how about we pit a shark against another animal? Like, I like when they're like, the shark attacking people is not great, but they go the Godzilla route of like, maybe the shark is not necessarily out to get us. Maybe it's out to fight
another thing,
a big kraken or like some other mecha shark or something.
Well, there is a series of films from sci-fi, the Mega Shark versus. So I've only seen the initial one, which I believe is Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus. And in that one, I remember something that has stuck with me ever since I saw it was early on, there's a scene where the Mega Shark, I think it's the opening scene, the Mega it jumps out of the water and eats an airplane that's flying. The movie opens up with a guy like going about his business. Like he's like in his business suit and he's like doing work on the airplane. He's mid-flight. And they look out the window and then you just see this big, huge like shark maw come up. And then you have this terrible CGI image of like this big shark just crunching down on the airplane. I'm like, oh shit, ate the airplane, jumped that high. I was like, this movie's going to be good. And then the rest of the movie is not nearly as good as that initial scene. But there's like a whole series of kaiju, like sci-fi
versus shark. Yeah.
Crocosaurus, Mecha Shark. I like the list went on and on. I can't even think of all the different combinations.
What would you say is your favorite of these sharks? Do you have a personal favorite?
Like real sharks?
No, movie sharks.
Or movie sharks?
Movie sharks.
Well, you know what? That's the thing. I don't think I have one yet because I don't think a shark other than like Bruce, than like the Jaws shark, has really like had enough personality to me.
Really?
To like stand out, you know? There's not like that much of an identifier. Like Jaws is special because he's not like cartoonish like the Meg Big. I guess the Meg would also be like a notable one, but like Bruce is like a really big great white, like bigger than the normal ones.
I really like the shark in The Shallows.
Oh yeah, he was cool.
I like that shark because
he was mean.
He was really mean, but I really love, there's a shot in The Shallows where she's swimming down to this destroyed like buoy wreckage, and it's got all this like jagged metal, and she like hides in the wreckage as the shark is like crashing down, like swimming to like gobble her whole. And she like just barely sneaks out in time for the shark to come crashing in at like 45 miles an
Mach
hour.
speed, dude. That shark hits the bottom of the ocean. Like, what was his plan? Even if there wasn't impaling things there, he was just gonna like smash himself at like 100 miles an hour against the rocks.
It's one of the best looking fucking underwater CGI sharks. I just think there's something about it, that shot, that really feels like tangible and tactile.
No,
really
I
nice.
totally agree. And actually, now I'm ashamed that I didn't think of that one because the reef shark. As much as Eric was dogging on the plot, or at least the main character of that movie, shout out to Blake Lively, I thought she did a really good job in that movie. But yeah, I think the shark in that is very evil. It's cartoonish. It doesn't make any sense. But that I'm fine with that. If you want to make like one like evil shark, like that's cool. And yeah, he actually does. He feels very solid in the movie. He doesn't feel as ephemeral as a lot of shark movies.
Now, did you ever see the one? There's a sequel to the Shallows, or it might be The Reef.
No, you're thinking of The Reef. So The Reef is the one about it's similar to Open Water, where there's a bunch of like people and their boat sinks or like capsizes, and so a bunch of them are like, we're gonna go float over this way and hope to get help. And then they eventually like come upon like a small reef, but they're being hunted by some sort of shark.
There's a sequel.
The kayak one?
Yeah, the kayak one's great, where you have those 3 chicks out on the open water. They're like ocean kayaking, and all of a sudden it's like, I lost my oar, and I got attacked by a shark.
Yeah. You know what? What is another reason why I really like shark movies is because they often, if not exclusively, they often overlap with a genre of movie that we also did a whole episode about, our survival horror movie episode. Check that out. I think that's one of our really good ones. Where a lot of the fun of the movie is watching people like survive like these crazy circumstances dealing with like nature. And one of the further broken down subgenres of the survival horror we did was the animal attack ones. And so a lot of those movies, end up being shark ones, and there's like that. So there's that extra like fun aspect of like having to watch somebody survive in addition to dealing with with a monster.
It reminded me a lot of, and I might have talked about it in that episode, not to get too far away from sharks, but that movie, The Pool, which I believe is either Korean. It must be Korean, but it's about the guy who gets stuck in the pool, and then there's like that huge gator in the pool with him. And that movie is a clear descendant of like shark movies prior, but it's just another one of those like, hey, let's do shark, or let's do crocodile plus this equals the pool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, alligator movies. I'm pretty sure like there must have been at least like one alligator movie that was like before the big shark boom. But I know that like Jaws happened, and then we started to see a bunch of like gator movies, because it was essentially like, well, Jaws worked. What else is like a scary water guy? Oh, alligators. Make a bunch of those. Do a Lake Placid. Do crocodile. Do all that. So, I mean, almost like in terms of like the lineage of these types of movies, like alligator movies. Oh, yeah, they have the same DNA.
It's like a direct descendant
as Jaws. So, but yeah, I mean, like there's really no shortage of shark movies for you. Some are good, some are really bad. Again, Shark Night, me and Eric both love. I really love The Shallows. I think that's like a great survival horror movie. Gives me the same like pleasure as watching like Fall. Yeah, it was like right up The Shallows is like right up there with Fall for me. Deep Blue Sea, great. Honestly, if you can catch Deep Blue Sea and Deep Blue Sea 3, you can skip 2.
2 is no good.
2 is no good. 3, very good. And they all follow the same. They're actually like a linear story. They're still following like the idea of those like those very specific like enhanced sharks and like the science teams behind them and stuff.
You know what? I'm surprised we haven't gotten to see much of, because there are some. I would say in the land of sharks, there are pretty boys and there are ugly boys. There are some really heinous looking fucking sharks out there. I'm surprised we haven't seen like a more monstrous shark, like based off something like the goblin shark. Yeah. Or like something like with the saw fin sharks. You ever see those where they have like the nose,
the big nose?
Yeah, that just looks like a fucking chainsaw. I'm surprised we haven't seen more of those type of shark movies, because usually it is like, your bull shark or your great white or your Meg.
Yeah. again, we were talking about the other day. We never get to see, because we were watching Shark Night, which has a hammerhead shark, which is my favorite kind of shark. I think they're the coolest looking ones.
They're pretty dope.
And you almost never see hammerhead sharks unless like the only time I can ever like specifically remember seeing a hammerhead shark in a movie was I think in like Pirates of the Caribbean. There was like a cool, because they're like a tropical shark.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So maybe that, but it's like I do wish we could see more.
I think a huge part of that too is that it's difficult to make a hammerhead shark attack look cool on camera.
That's what I was asking, because it doesn't look like they can open their mouths enough to attack
a lot of the
person.
hammerhead shark is the jaw opens down, and the same thing with most other sharks, but they can kind of angle like the mouth of like a big like bull shark and a great white to look like, oh fuck, we can look right down inside its mouth, look at all those teeth, that's so scary. Not so much with the hammerhead. Yeah, the hammerhead shark kind of just looks like a sock puppet. It's like,
they're pretty goofy. Maybe that's why I like them so much.
They are cute.
There was a cool shark so there's 47 meters down, right? Which also, I recommend that movie too. Another kind of like mix of survival and shark. Maybe a little less effective than The Shallows. I think The Shallows is just a better made movie. But 47 meters down, I think, is really fun. Has some cool little twists and turns. But in the second one, there's a sequel.
48?
It's 47 meters down, Uncaged. Because this one's not about being stuck in a cage. It's actually kind of like a treasure hunt movie, because it's a bunch of these kids. They grab a bunch of scuba gear, and they've found like inland. They found the entrance to like this sunken like temple. And they go but it's like all underwater. So they're scuba diving through this like ancient temple, and there's this like blind albino great white that is like stalking him through the hallways of the temple. And so like he's a cool little like unique guy that I was like, okay, like we're actually making like a character out of this shark.
That's cool.
He's pretty cool. The movie is okay.
I like that though. I like that they went the extra step of being like, let's really personalize this shark. This isn't just like capital S sharks. This is a shark.
Yeah. He's like all albino. He's got like scars, and he's blind.
Speaking of that, I love that this genre has a lot of the opposite in it, where it's like you could tell me that like they're being attacked by a certain type of shark for 2 hours, but in reality, you've shown me about 5 different sharks on footage, just like random B-roll of sharks. And I'm like, that's a different type of shark. And that's a different type of shark. And then the shark that's attacking them is a different shark. And they all try to make you think it's the same shark.
Yeah, that happens, especially the older the thing you're watching gets. Like there was in that Sharksploitation movie, there was, they were showing a bit from... I think it was like the $6 Million Man or something. There was an episode where he's like fighting a shark, and he's like wrestling with, what do they call it? A nurse shark?
A nurse
Those
shark,
really not dangerous sharks. And he's just kind of got one, and he's like shaking it around, and then he lets it go. And then the camera cuts to a completely different shark. That's just footage of a shark that's swimming away. And you're like, that was not the same thing that was in that guy's hands.
Well, they do that in that reef, sequel too, where it's like you see the shark jump out of the water and chomp a girl in half. And you're like, oh, wow, that was a big shark. And then they show you footage of like a completely different color and shape shark as it's like swimming away. And you're like, that's not the same guy.
But yeah, so, I mean, those are like a few shark movies that I recommend checking out or watching. Do you have any last minute additions?
I would say not additions, but I would like to pose a question to you. What would you hope to see in the future of this subgenre? What would you hope to see as far as like what kind of where do you think we can go with the shark movie? Because clearly we've already been to space, we've already been like underground, we've already done all sorts of types of mutant sharks. We have the atomic shark, we have the sharktopus. What room is there left in the ocean for another shark movie?
I wouldn't mind seeing like a shark movie because again, I really like the idea of putting sharks in, like having to deal with sharks in not normal places, which is why I like Deep Blue Sea, where there's all those corridors, 47 meters down to where they're in that temple. I think it would be cool if you did like sort of go like Alien style or something, like where you have like set it in like the future, but like the earth is like totally flooded over, right? The ice caps have melted. That's a hot button issue, right? So like the world's underwater, you know, so you have like people in like scuba suits, like, but like futuristic ones just for fun and flavor. And they're going to like, they like say they go like to old New York and it's like all underwater. And they're like, you're in skyscrapers and shit and like office buildings that are completely underwater. And you're dealing with like sharks attacking people like through like the Penn Station and stuff. That's
I think that'd be sick. That's a fantastic idea. I think the movie that came out this past year, No Way Up, which is the one about the plane that crashes into the water with an intact fuselage, and then the water is slowly rising, and there is now a shark in the fuselage with them. I was like, oh, that's a fucking great idea. Apparently, it's a bad movie, but
not terrible.
Good premise,
but not
good
very
premise for a shark movie. How do you get sharks on a plane? Well, you put the plane underwater.
Yeah, I agree. I like that. I liked the idea.
Yeah.
And I watched the whole movie. It was okay.
I think it'd be cool if they were
idea.
just like, you know, floating around some kind of old abandoned skyscraper in New York, and then all of a sudden you get a shark that's like swimming at you over like a bullpen of cubicles. Like, I think that's a great visual.
Right? And you can hit, like, if you set it in like a famous city, you know, like that, like New York, then you can have sharks swimming through. You can have like the subway. You can hit all of the like the locales of like a city, but you're experiencing it in like
subway shark,
weightless underwater, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that would be that. If I had to like write something, that'd probably be where I would start.
Pretty good use of your brain there.
You know, all the famous directors that are listening to this show,
Hollywood, come at us.
I'll write it. Just give me. I just need some seed money. I'll write it. I promise. But yeah, I mean that's it. I think for Shark Week. Sorry again that we couldn't get John Cena. We tried.
We called all his people.
Every one of them.
All of them.
I called literally everybody on Facebook who had the last name Cena that had their number in their profile. I called every single one of them. Couldn't get in contact with them. It was crazy.
But what else we got going on? We got next week we're taking off from the podcast because we did our, you know, couple weeks in a row here. We're going to take 1 week off and then we'll come back at you with the last couple entries in August, right?
Yeah, I think early August we're looking at Cuckoo, I believe, comes out.
Ooh.
We're going to be talking about that, right? We're both,
yes.
That's something on our list.
Yes, and Trap.
Yes.
We're fucking pumped on Trap. M. Night Shyamalan, you've disappointed me endlessly in the past, but there's something about this one that I'm like, he might fucking pull it off.
You know what? Fingers crossed. I'm really hoping.
I'm hoping for him and for us that it's a heater.
You know what? Something tells me this is going to be a good one. I think we're going back to form for this. But yeah, so we'll get back to you early August. We'll be talking about Cuckoo, Trap, and, of course, more hot, wet stuff. But until then, keep it real, everybody. Do the best Beelzebub's ever.